We live in an age in which technology is rapidly transforming communication styles. While the mediation of new electronic devices allows us to communicate over great distances with many people, it does not provide all the richness and possibilities offered by direct interpersonal communication. It is clear that each of us is involved from the very beginning of our existence in a complex process of acquiring the rules of communication. This paper is an analysis of communication in its broadest sphere, from interpersonal communication that takes place face-to-face to the social psychology approach, with particular attention paid to the effects it has on human behavior, and to the communication of today, an exchange of information through the digital world that focuses on the evolution of communication in companies. The aim is to make readers more aware of their use of nonverbal and verbal language, to make their communication more effective and persuasive. The perception we have of ourselves and of the outside world depends on our interpersonal relationships with our fellow human beings, outside the network of relationship in which each of us is inevitably embedded. Our identity would be lost. All the main cultural practices that qualify the existence of the individual, greeting each other, exchanging gifts, going out shopping, attending a theater performance, or taking part in a religious ceremony, are structured on the basis of communicative processes. In the first part, we examine the theoretical concept of communication. The focus is on the beginnings of communication itself, its constituent elements, its evolution, and its main functions. The second part deals with the specific means and processes that characterize interpersonal communication and the various facets of the verbal and nonverbal spheres will be examined. In the last part, an analysis is proposed on new ways of communicating, changes due to the advent of social networks, the various technological devices, and the lockdown, with particular attention given to the internal communication that takes place in corporate organization, and lastly, to the evolution of communication after the pandemic. This paper has focused on the art of communication, a broad sphere with many facets, from its beginnings to its most profound change, due to modernity and the phenomenon that the whole world has experienced in the last 2 years. After so much time, we find it difficult to be alone with ourselves and to continue to endure any kind of isolation. The positive impact that the pandemic has had on all of us, it has enabled us to rediscover group comfortation, the enrichment that only human relationships can offer us. This made me discover, on the one hand, that we cannot ignore the modernization of communication because the world around us is constantly evolving and we benefit from new digital methods of communication. On the other hand, we have to know how to combine the world of new communication with the true essence of knowing how to communicate. Digital means are a great help, but they must not, in my opinion, completely replace human relationships. Nature teaches us that at certain times we need to stop, listen, and slow down in order to change and evolve by developing the characteristics necessary for survival. That of a chrysalis is the most radical form of transformation. Molting, that is, shedding its outer layer to be reborn into a new life and fly as a butterfly, fits in with the human evolutionary process. A process that is triggered after periods of great suffering. The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu said, "What the caterpillar calls the end of the world calls the butterfly." This can be a useful principle for lockdown, to experience it as a chrysalis, to go deep within ourselves and be able to manifest ourselves renewed. We can therefore conclude by saying that communication is a kind of social action whose actors are multiple and contributes to the construction of the personal identity of specific subjects through specific languages, in particular social and organizational contexts.